Welcome to Faith in the Nation for July 12th, 2024. It is, of course, a privilege to be here again with you. And today's show is going to be very informative as usual. We'll be talking about a lot of the things that are happening currently. I wouldn't get into my guests yet. I want to tell you to call up a friend, call up a neighbor, tell them Faithing the Nation is on. Of course, you can follow us on our platforms, the People's National Congress Reform page on Facebook, the APNU AFC page on Facebook, and the People's National Congress Reform page and the APNU UFC page on YouTube. So come on, call up a friend, call up a neighbor, tell them today's show is going to be a hot one. And, let's keep the public informed. Let's talk about what's happening and let's talk about the actions that are to be taken. Today, I have two guests. They're no strangers to Facing the Nation. They're no strangers to television. They're no strangers to talking political things because they're both members of parliament. I want to start out by introducing none other than the re-elected chairman of the People's National Congress Reform and member of parliament, shadowing the Ministry of Natural Resource, none other than Mr. Sherwin Holder. Welcome. And his colleague, who is returning to the CEC of the People's National Congress Reform, member of parliament. He is shadowing local government and development. He is none other than Mr. Ganesh Maipal. Welcome.
Thank you, Shanieka. Thank you very much for having me. I trust you're hearing me loud and clear. Good afternoon, Sherwin.
Loud.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Thanks for having me. Good afternoon to your viewing audience as well. Always a pleasure being here.
Great. I want to put no delays on today's show because both of you know once we get talking, the time just runs out, and there is definitely a lot to talk about today. There is so much happening. But quickly before we go into what's trending right now for this week, there are obviously lots of issues. When you have a corrupt government, of course, a lot of things pop up. But I just want to start out because this is the first time after Congress that I am having a conversation with both of you, and I want to congratulate you on your positions, your re-elected positions, which boost of the confidence that the people of the People's National Congress Reform have in you both and the work that you're doing. Congratulations.
Thanks, Shanieka. I'm not sure if I should say anything more other than thanks. We had a democratic and transparent process as usual. You know, our party, we always dub it to be the most democratic mass-based party in Guyana, and we've proven just that through our Congress. And we've also proven that our base is still intact and people are still energized around the party and ready to support us. And for that, I'm very much thankful.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Maipa?
Well, I guess I can echo similar sentiments to that of which Sherwin echoed, and to say thanks to the membership of the People's National Congress Reform for once again reposing the confidence in me to serve at the office of Central Executive Member. I must say that the elections were held in an open field, and no delegate nor observer or any member of the party can question the transparency of the elections. I know that there were some hesitations regarding the count, but the People's National Congress reform really had nothing to do with that. That was strictly in the hands of the returning officer,
Mm-hmm.
V and A Associates, a reputable company also, and we do recognize and noticed that he did say that the persons he depended upon for the count were not persons associated to the PNCR, but rather people who are working within the public sector field, and they come off of work at 4:30 and so on. So he had to. That's how he ended up with so many days. But in actuality, the count really took several hours and not necessarily several days when you look at the amount of work that had to be put in by people who are not membership associated to the PNCR. So I was glad that he clarified that, and I'm happy that the results are respected and appreciated by the membership of the party. And most of the persons who spoke with me afterwards indicated that the people who they voted for are the people who won, and they were comfortable with that. And I'm happy to know that also.
Thank you so much. Just quickly, as we're on the same topic, so you have now begun your new term in these positions, and we are heading into an election period here. What can persons, not just members who would have voted for you at the PNCR level, but what can we look forward to in terms of betterment of the party and the country as we head into election? Anyone could go first.
Well, thanks for the question. Look, the people would have reposed confidence in the team, the existing team now. We can definitely, they can definitely look forward for a more robust uh, party on the ground. Um, Party being very much active in every community across the country over the next year, over the next 2 years, even as we get into the elections period. We have a lot of work to do internally. We have to strengthen our youth arm, for example. We have to continuously work on increasing the membership and strengthening the youth arm. We hope that we can, or we intend to rather, to have a youth conference before the end of the year. So that is an objective that we would have set for ourselves almost immediately. We have to also strengthen the membership and a number of internal processes of the party. I think we have a great team, a great opportunity at this time to do it. We have a wide persons coming onto the executive that brings a wide variety of experience, knowledge. They come from different background, different areas, different geography, different areas from across the country. We have a great spread. So again, I think that will be to our advantage. We will also look at strengthening the secretariat because, as you know, everything revolves around the secretariat in terms of the administrative work. So we're looking to strengthen the admin, and of course, I think this is the era of technology, and we'll up to increase our use in terms of technology for certain processes, especially in terms of meeting out to our membership and our supporters. So you can expect an increase in the use of technology, Zoom meetings. The leader and myself and others will be very busy around the country, and we can only be one place at a time. And so I would encourage the use of technology to ensure that we are constantly in contact, even not in even if it's not in physical contact at the time. At least we stay in contact through the use of technology. So there are lots more. We will meet shortly as an executive, and we will at that point we will streamline our plans for the next few months and the next year. So we'll have a concrete plan coming out very, very shortly, but I'm just giving you a taste of where we intend to go.
Thank you. Mr. Maipaw?
Well, Sherwin took you down the internal party mechanism there, and what is it that the party intends to do in terms of the upcoming regional and national elections and so on. I will take you down what I will consider a more national point of view and point out that what you can expect is a robust team that will ensure that they hit on every door and they can spread the word to the population across the country for them to understand how different we are from the current status quo, which is the regime that is in government that is creating much discomfort and displeasure to the population at large. I think it is beyond the doubt now, beyond the shadow of doubt, and people are of the opinion that the People's Progressive Party is not acting within the best interest of the Guyanese people, and they are looking for that alternative. I know that the People's Progressive Party will want to try and hoodwink the Guyanese people into going down in history, like what we see Gail Teixeira oftentimes do. As Amanza would have said, she needs to go seek therapy because she seems to be suffering immensely from something that bothered her in the 1960s and 1970s. The PNC has a young cohort of leaders that are fixated on bettering the lives of the future and what we are in here right now, presently. And we are fixated on ensuring that the newfound wealth of this country, the oil wealth, along with the other resources that we have as a nation, it must benefit everyone and not a select few. And that is what our trajectory, that is where we're heading in terms of our trajectory. We, as the People's National Congress Reform, we are guided by what we had done as APNU AFC in government. The mistakes we made, we intend to correct them, not repeat them, and to build on the positives that saw many people praising us, and they still do currently when they compare the actions of the PPP. So we are on the road of ensuring that we don't repeat the mistakes made in the past, Shanieka, and we move forward to better the lives of all Guyanese through our hard work and ensuring that this young cohort of leaders position themselves in such a manner that they can deliver to every single Guyanese that good life that is long overdue. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And it's definitely what is needed now. I don't think that I can overstate that we cannot as a country continue with a government like that we're looking at for another 5 years by any means necessary. Guyana is in some serious trouble if we allow that to happen. As we get into the conversation, I want to just pull up a clip that will bring us back down memory lane. And I do believe it was sometime just like this. This piece did come out in the month of July, and we heard and saw all of the things that were being said. And now, as we will continue this discussion, we will see how a lot that was said here as well is unraveling right before our eyes in terms of the corruption that we see. Operator.
Guyana dropped 2 points on the Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index, which puts it among the most corrupt in the region. What about within your government? Do you accept bribes?
No, I don't.
We've spoken to a number of Chinese business people in Guyana who said that you do accept bribes, and they have said that, in fact, it's the only way to get business done.
Yeah, well, I can't comment on that. You can just sit there and fabricate that. Unless you say who the person is, I can't comment on anonymous people.
Okay, well, let's talk about specific individuals. What is your relationship with Mr. Su Zhirong?
So my relationship? Nothing. He's a tenant in my place, yeah.
And he's a good friend of yours?
Yes, he is a friend of ours.
He claims that through his very close relationship with you, that he's able to get any deal done.
Well, I don't.
Do you use middlemen like Sue in order to take money on your behalf so that you can keep your hands clean?
No. The answer is no.
All right. I just thought that we needed that refresher before we get into today's discussion, because what we're seeing before us, I mean, it being the anniversary to this video, We are seeing a lot of things unfolding before us in terms of the corruption. And we clearly see why he was so nervous when he was asked certain questions, why the stuttering when a name was finally called. We are seeing that unveiled before our eyes. We are seeing permanent secretaries just, taking leave or being sent on leave, resigning. We're looking now at the deputy acting commissioner going on leave for the same reason, investigation in terms of corruption and things that are happening. And this cannot be taken lightly, and we have to continue to speak about it because it is time that we ensure that every Guyanese know the reason why, whenever the next election is called, why we must not have these people return to office. Let's talk about that clip as we get in. Mr. Mike Paul.
Shanika, every time I look at that clip, and I sometimes when I want to have a good laugh, and you're under stress, and you believe you need a stress reliever, I would just listen to that clip because the way Jagnio face lights up when when he heard, or the way it lit up when he heard the word Sue, and you could have seen that this girl, like, she really evoked the spirit in this man, and I have always found it very funny, especially when he says Sue, who's Sue? And it's like, oh my God, this woman knows about Sue. That's how I saw it, right? But beyond the comedy of it and beyond the funniness of it, Jack Dio has no moral authority to speak on behalf of this regime, or to speak to anybody in this country when it comes to transparency, accountability, and good governance. He has no moral authority. Every time he attempts to discredit someone, people are like, you, Jagdio, you're talking bad about somebody else? And he has perhaps the dirtiest closet in terms of corruption in this country. When you look at, and our leader said it, Comrade Norton said it, the day Jagdio can equate his wealth that he has accumulated to the salary he earned while serving in government, then he can begin to discuss with people anything to do with transparency and accountability. But he cannot do that because he is not fit for it. Corruption is rampant in this country, and he only stands in front of the television and talk. Yesterday at his press conference, he attempted to say that they are going to look at the Procurement Act should be followed, but he went on to accepting that the procurement laws were being people were being the procurement officers and so on, they were pulling away from it, and you're not taking any action. All you're doing is that you're trying to come and pamper people, damper their anxiety to the satisfaction that you think your words now matter. But we are in an era where technology is across the country. The way you were able, and that is the PPP, were able to they were able to mamagai and distract and lie to the people in Region 2, Region 6, Region 7, 8, 9, 10. They can't do it anymore because people are exposed now to, because of technology. You go on the internet and you see almost everything that Georgetown people see. When you, Shanika, saw this morning that Vikram Bharat was stopped at the
Here.
JFK, escorted and questioned, the people in Region 2 saw it the same time.
Yeah.
The people in Region 1 saw it the same time. The people in Region 9 saw it the same time. So
Mhm.
there is no avenue, there is no time available to the PPP and Kwame Mackay to try to pivot or to try and distract or to try and cover up. So
Mhm.
corruption is being exposed at a faster rate now than it was under those 23 years they were there. And when you look at cost of living and how it is affecting the people, when you look at the way contracts are being given out, when you look how public servants are being treated, everybody now is they're complaining. They're complaining bitterly about a government, a regime that seeks to have no interest in the ordinary, but every interest in the friend, family, favorite clan. Every interest in the friends, families, favorites, and I know we recently added flatterers, and somebody else was telling me fornicators. So a lot of F's are coming into play with this regime. And the Guyanese people, they have to be cognizant of the fact that you can only get change if you really and truly want that change. And if
Correct.
you are going to vote for the PPP, then you have to take the treatment that they give you. I have said, Shanika, you have 5 years of the APNU AFC, and there were no oil resource available. And then you have this period with the PPPC with oil resource. And the simplest of comparison has to do with salary increases. When the PPP came to, when the APNU AFC, when the APNU AFC came to government in 2015, minimum wage was $35,000. When the APNU AFC left government in 2020, minimum wage was $70,000. That was a 100% increase in
Yeah.
minimum wages. When the APNU AFC came to government in 2015, the December month, there was a 50,000 one-off bonus for every worker. Then there was $25,000 in 2016. And incrementally, you saw how the salaries of the hardworking, tax-paying Guyanese were moved from where it was to where it is currently. And there
Correct.
were no complaints about cost of living then. A cut of pumpkin was $300 under the coalition. A cut of pumpkin now is $1,000 or
$1,000.
more. A bottle of coconut water under the coalition was $900. Under the PPP is $2,200. And you got the oil money, and yet people ain't feeling it. So this government, this regime, this barbaric, demonic, whatever else I could use to describe them, the PPP, they are not fit for this country. It was proven for the 23 years they have been there, and you saw mass murder happening, you saw corruption, you saw all sorts of things. Up to now, we can't know who killed Saturday, saw one of
Up
their
to
very own. And they
now.
talk about, I heard Gail Teixeira talking about all these other extrajudicial killing, but she doesn't seem to remember Yuanse Douglas from UG when Yuanse Douglas was killed. She doesn't
Yeah.
Crummy,
seem to remember Saturday Saw. She
crummy
doesn't
wing.
seem to remember Crummy Wing. She doesn't seem to remember the Henry Boys. She doesn't seem to remember Harish Singh, and these are recent ones, Quindon Bacchus and the others. This regime has no respect for people's lives. They have no respect for people's sanctity, and they are not good for Guyana. And we, the citizens of this country, we have to ensure we do what is right. And that is at the time of elections, we vote them out. Full stop.
Correct. I mean, if we start calling names in terms of deaths, we wouldn't stop. We had Ronald Waddle, we had Orrin Boston, we had so many people who were even
Headley, you
more
had Headley
recent.
and all of them.
Yes, Donna McKinnon, all these people. Chairman, with this video that we're seeing here, we just made a quick mention about the current minister of natural resource. There is information to suggest that he may have been stopped and questioned in the US sometime between last night to this morning. We also saw that another permanent secretary was being put on leave or whatever it was. Of course, we had May, who is also labeled in the whole thing with the Mohammed family. She also resigned from the PPP after that came to light. So these are all things that are happening currently that we are seeing this has to be happening because a lot of exposure is happening. A lot of concerns are being raised in this regard. Let's talk about that, Chairman.
Yeah, thanks, Shanieka. And Ganesh said a mouthful. Ganesh said a mouthful, but while he was commenting on it, and even as you comment, uh, my thought is corruption. I think corruption is what is involved or has the country where it is currently. You see, if a snake is rotten from the head, then the entire body will rot. And
Mhm.
so I want to say to you and the public that the PPP is rotten from the head. When you look at that video with Vice President Jagdeo, and when I say the head here, uh, I'm referring exactly to Vice President Jagdeo and Irfan Ali, to, well, both of them together. When you have the head for the government or for the political party in power sitting in his living room and entertaining these kinds of transactions allegedly, or from the video we saw it, the entire nation and the world saw it, you know,
Mhm.
where he's saying, so is my friend, and he handles all the deals and he gets all the support. I believe that speaks for itself. Ganesh made reference to, when you look at it, you know, Guyanese are no fools. When you listen and you look at his reaction, it was a shocker. You could see that he wanted to know, what else does this reporter know about my relationship with Sue? It was like a little child, frozen, a little kindergarten child, frozen, totally froze up, didn't know what to say, turned away from the camera. You can look at it, you know, you can look at it over and over again. And so once you have the head
Mhm.
of government or the head of the major political party embroiled in these kinds of allegations, then no different will happen down the order. Everybody will believe that they can do whatever they want to do. And once they're involved in corruption, it's like a virus, it's like a sick. It catches on. So it
Mhm.
catches on to the police force, it catches on through the various ministries, whether it's gold smuggling at natural resource, and I guess we will talk a little more in detail
Yes.
about that, or whether
Mhm.
it's through the police force corruption. We are now seeing what is happening there in terms of one of the most senior persons who himself was embroiled in all kind of controversy even prior to this, and now his name is calling again. And you know what? These people are friends of the People's Progressive Party, and were appointed, warned against appointing them, and they still went ahead and appointed them. We know all the revelations with Paul Slow when he was
Mhm.
the chairman. And so you
Mhm.
are appointing some of these people that are involved in corruption. So what do you expect? It's a corrupt nation. That will be the ultimate, um, that will be the final state of the country under this government. You know what? We always knew that the PPP was corrupt. When we look at what they did from 1992 all the way to 2015, they were extremely corrupt. But I want to say this to you. I believe that this Irfan Ali led government, Irfan Barajagnew led government, is the most corrupt regime in the,
Correct.
not in Guyana, in the history of this country, but the entire Caribbean.
Mhm.
We have never witnessed these levels of corruption in any other sister state within the entire Caribbean. And so they're setting a certain precedence, a certain, well, not for us, but they're setting a particular level now. And you know what? It is worse because we are now an oil-rich country. We now have vast resources at our disposal or at their
Mhm.
disposal. And so once you have the most corrupt regime, you know, the people definitely will not benefit. And I think that is what the Ganesh was getting to in terms of what trickles down from corruption in this country. They're the most corrupt regime.
Mhm.
If you look at the article with the minister just being detained, Vikram Bharat, just being detained according to several news outlets. I saw it in Demar Waves. I saw it first, I believe, from Enrico Wolfor, and then some others. Could you believe a senior minister of government being escorted by federal agents of the United States? That is unheard of. It only occurs under the People's Progressive Party. It only occurs under the People's Progressive Party. This is
Correct.
and he's not the first to be detained. In past administrations, you had other persons had their visas revoked. You had other persons being detained, but like it's every few weeks something is happening
Yeah.
in this light. Every couple of weeks you have the story is just unfolding in my view. You had PS May, the whole big revelation there, and I want to suspect, I want to suspect that this has to be linked. I mean, we don't have the information out there as yet, but you can deduce from it what exactly is transpiring. He is head for natural resource. You just had sanctions being placed on one of their associates and sitting councillor or former councillor now. You had PS May, which was who was connected to the said individual. She also falling into that category of sanctions. She also on her way traveling to China, or so she claimed, was detained and her phone taken away and all these things. So there's
Correct.
obviously a preponderance of information there in the U.S. archives there on Guyana, on this country, on that specific ministry in terms of what exactly is transpiring there in terms of gold and other corruption. Because this thing is not only gold, you know. Once people can smuggle one commodity, they smuggle other things. Drugs go along with it. Human trafficking go along with it. A wide range of illegalities in that circle it would be in. And so it would be very, very interesting. It would be very, very interesting to know what exactly transpired last night. But I tell you this, I don't believe that you can get or you will get anything from the government. If you ask Jack Dio, and I guess the reporters will be on his tail today, all I do already know what he will say. The nation already know he doesn't have the information at his disposal. He will have to ask Vikram Bharat when he comes back, and that is the line that you will get from him. He will even ask another question. Instead of asking a question, he will answer it with another question. That is what he does. But he himself is embroiled in this kind of thing, so you can't expect better. The last thing I would say until, and I give my colleague a chance, or you again, Bharat Jagdeo, circling back to this living room discussion. Bharat Jagdeo on the 12th, between the 11th to 13th of June or July, I can recall, after this story came to light, he called for an investigation or a probe or something like that.
Yeah.
Robeson Penn, the minister in charge of public security of home affairs, also said that there would be a probe. Irfan Ali, the commander-in-chief, said the same thing. They said it successively 3 days in a row, I can recall. Then what happened? Nothing happened. The only thing that happened after that is Bar Jagdeo putting up a front that he was going to sue, and he couldn't find him. And total
Very
nonsense.
too soon.
They think that they can play the people of Guyana, but they're the most corrupt regime, and we have to get rid of them.
Yes, definitely. Another thing that has been that has hit the airways this week, we know about the nepotism in the PPPC. We've seen it before. We hear all kinds of stuff. I saw recently, shamelessly, the PPP putting up snippets and trying to blame the APNU for all kinds of things. And I somehow wonder if they forget, after a few seconds, what they would have just done or the contracts they would have handed out and the things that we're seeing. We are seeing this week some revelation about the Minister of Agriculture. His children, according to what we're seeing, who have been receiving contracts here, there, and everywhere, and not just at other ministries, but ministries, his ministry as well. And in one instance, we're also hearing that he himself has a company which has received contracts from his own ministry. And we're being told as well that, even the other contracts, he is solely in control of what happened in regards to the contracts going through his ministry. And if he does not approve them, they don't go through, and he has to get a cut. And I'm going to say this here and now. This is not something strange that we are hearing, because we have been hearing revelations, not just about this minister, but many other ministers, where persons are saying, and contractors, are saying that the amount of money that they have to give in percentage, either back to these ministries or back to the PPPC itself, in terms of the procurement of contracts, it is just crazy. It is everywhere, and they themselves are beginning to start to refuse contracts that are being given to them, because the fee, the payback, the cut they're claiming is so high. And while some people have this notion, oh, there are a lot of people getting contracts with the PPP, etc., a lot of those same people getting contracts are saying, look, let me make case and get this government out, because we are under pressure as well. Let's talk about that. I don't know who wants to go first.
Shanika,
Well, Ganesh can go.
let me say first of all that you are correct. A lot of people who are receiving contracts, they are of the opinion that this government needs to go, and there's a reason for that.
Mhm,
You see, under the APNU AFC, when we were in government, there was a equal or equitable distribution of the cake. The pie was being delivered to the workers or the contractors in a manner where they had to follow the procurement laws.
mhm,
You advertise for the project, you then accept bids for the project, you open the bids in a public space, you engage in the evaluation, and then the tender board awards based on the lowest, most responsive. In some cases, justifiably so, the lowest, most responsive may not get the project because he or she or that company is already engaged in two or three projects, and it will be utterly unfair for a fourth or fifth to go when they don't have the capacity to finish it within the time range. And all
mhm,
of those are catered for. But what is happening now is that you're not even getting to know who are the people who would have applied for these projects. They are engaging in a lot of restrictive tendering. They're engaging in selective bidding where they're calling their people and to say to them, come and bring in a quotation or come and bring in a bill for this or for that, and they're awarding the contract.
mhm,
This is the Procurement Act of 2003.
mhm,
This is the document that is supposed to guide all levels of contract awarding in this country. And this document is being violated almost every day when they award contracts. When you look at how they award for different aspects, they're violating it. And a simple section like section 10 says that the procuring entity shall maintain a record of the procurement proceedings, including a brief description of the goods, services, construction, or consulting services to be procured, and the names and addresses of suppliers or contractors that
mhm,
submitted tenders, proposals, or quotations, and the name and address of the supplier or contractor with which the contract is entered into and the contract price. And all of this is supposed to be made public upon request.
mhm,
I wrote the 10 regions requesting these information, and to date, none of them can supply it.
mhm,
Because when they do supply it, what I will see is the address that belongs to one company also belongs to two or
Stand
three
up.
other
Mm-hmm.
companies.
Mm-hmm.
And what I will see is that in the awarding, it never went to the lowest, most responsive bidder. The
Mm-hmm.
composition of the tender boards, the composition of the National Procurement and Tender Administration Board is filled with friends, families, and favorites. The composition of the regional tender boards, they have disregarded what is stated in the law and they have imposed their own people. But long time done, right? Short time left. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying to people, even Jack, there was in region two the other day, Sherwin's region. Well, my region too, because I have Bort right there.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who attended his meeting at the Anna Regina Secondary, they said to me that all this man keeps rambling about is what is wrong with the system, but he's not telling us how he will fix the system.
Mm-hmm.
And then he is trying to tell them that they got to go out more into agriculture, they got to do more with fishing, they got to do more with everything else. But what he did not say is that he took the $250,000 and distributed it to people that were selected
Uh-huh.
by the PPP people.
Mm-hmm.
Each one of the councillors, be it NDC or RDC, they were instructed to get about 5 to 10 names of people they believe should get this 250,000. And once you're of an Afro descent or you're aligned by somebody to be PNC or APNU AFC, you goose cook. You ain't getting nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And what we have been saying in the PNCR is nothing is wrong with giving an assistance, whether it is a business venture assistance, whether it is an assistance for whatever purpose. But
Correct.
there must be clear criteria.
Mm-hmm.
There must be clear measuring tapes that
Mm-hmm.
are used to ensure that who needs it gets it.
Correct.
In Wakenham, for example, the hot dog man, he controls everything to do with the $250,000. And he calls whom he believes should get, not whom the people who believe that they are entitled, they don't get it. And when they hear who get it, they want to know, oh, this man get it, he more rich than this body and that body. It is complete friends, families, favorites, as you said, nepotism, cronyism, all isms you could think about. That is
Mm-hmm.
what the PPP is engaged in. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, Shanika, this country, or let me use Wakenham for example. Wakenham has about 2,500 voters, and the PPP seems to be satisfying 250 people continuously.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a friend family favorite thing, right? If the people don't stand up against them and they allow this to happen, and when election time come, they don't vote against them, then as always said this thing, you can't plant Bora and want to reap okra.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. As I bring chairman in, one of the things you made mention in the last part there, when we go out on those outreaches and we go to those bottom house meetings, even in the PPP strongholds, what you're hearing is the same thing, whether it is Region 5 or Region 6, in the Blackbush Polder area, Kasari, Region 4, Region 2, Region 3, especially in the farming areas, you're hearing one thing, that we know that there are floods, there are different things happening, issues with crops, and there should be money being given to compensate to help these people get their cattle, their cash crops together, so that it can be better, so it can come to the market and be a little cheaper for those persons buying. But what you hear when we go on those outreaches is that the extension officers do their work. They know who are the farmers. They put a list together, and then you hear that list goes to PPP operative who then takes off all the names of the people who they feel are associated or who is not giving them a little handout or who will not give them back a piece of the money. And you hear them putting on persons who don't even have a farm, don't even have cattle, and they're being handed, these monies, these cash grants, and the government continues to boast about the billions of dollars that have changed nothing in our cost of living stand because it is going to the wrong bunch of people. And we must continue to tell our people this. And that is one of the reasons I continue to tell people who ask, whether y'all really feel the PPP can come out of power. Those are the reasons why they will be out when it comes 2025, Chairman. I'm not hearing you. I don't know if you're muted.
I think we might need about 2 hours more to discuss this issue of corruption. It's so major in this country. But Ganesh is absolutely correct. I just want to touch on the vice president and the grants being shared yesterday or day before yesterday in Region 2. We're hearing the stories even from persons who would have turned up there and didn't receive anything, but they were observing the process. Information came to me that high officials within the RDC, their wives, their children, everybody is receiving the grant, while other people can't get it. There were totally a select bunch which were given the grant. There is no structure. The PPP likes to operate within this opaque system where you can't see into what exactly they're doing. The same thing they're doing with the men on the mission. When we question it at the parliamentary level as to who heads the organization, what is the structure, what are the criteria to undertake these projects, or in the case of grants, what are the criteria, who gets what? There is no criteria. The only criteria is friends, family, and favorites, and that is what we constantly would have seen from the time they took government. Remember the cash grants, the flood relief cash grants. We're still waiting on that investigation that finally promised in December. If you guys can remember clearly, in December of that year, we promised that. December 2020, we promised that. The COVID cash grant, that is another issue. You could never get an audit into those things. On Monday, I looked at a report coming from the Public Procurement Commission, and there are literally dozens of complaints from contractors, all of them saying, look, I was the lowest bidder. Why I wasn't given this contract? And they're all in many of those cases, they're saying, well, we have to investigate it. And that's the end of it. The report is there. We it's a public report. We've just received it at the parliamentary level. In terms of the ministers, I come to know. In terms of the ministers, I have seen information circulating on social media pertaining to, I think it's Mustafa's son, allegedly. He's a gold dealer, and then you have some of them being contractors, sons and relatives of ministers. They literally have dozens and dozens of contracts there. I've seen some of the reports. I've seen some of the snapshots of receipts and other documentation. Dozens of shell companies, and people are basically complaining to say, look, these guys don't have the competence. They don't have what it takes to undertake these large contracts, but they still give them anyway. I believe, Shanieka, that as we get closer and closer into 2025, we will only see an increase, because I believe the PPP they've been rapidly increasing from 2020 in terms of their corruption and their cronyism. And as we get closer to elections, they are in panic mode. There is a likelihood that they will not be in government, and they know it. And so is every man for themselves. And that is what I see is going on there. If we circle back, I just want to circle back to the gold smuggling, because, this thing will not, I don't believe this thing will go away. I saw the government and Jack Dio saying that they're awaiting information from the US. I subsequently saw the US directing them where to get the information from. And then the AG saying that, well, Ian said nothing as yet. I don't believe that they're interested in the information, first of all. Secondly, they have the information at hand, enough information and enough evidence. You will recall that in January of this year, in my parliamentary presentation, in my budget speech, I made mention I had serious information on the drop-in gold declaration, where I said to the National Assembly and the public at large that from the small-scale miners, there is a 50% drop in declaration. From the large scale, there is up to 70% drop. And while they try to say, well, try resources pulled out, it doesn't explain at least the 50% drop from the small and medium scale miners. And then, and when you put that against what would have obtained in the previous government, in our government from 2015 to 2019, our full years, then you will see a vast difference. They have the records. If you look at the Bank of Guyana report and what you're getting from the international community, there is a great discrepancy there. It doesn't match up. So they have the evidence. They can go after this thing. But these are friends, family, and favorites, and corruption and the whole smuggling and everything doesn't end with a businessman. They know the customs officers who sign off on these documents. They have all the information there. But you know what? People up the hierarchy had to approve of some of these things. They had to see it. And so if you prosecute this small man, then it will go up the ladder. The small man might scream and he might call some names and it will go up the ladder. So basically they're hopeful that this thing could just pass. But here, this thing will not. It will not. With Vikram Bharat now being pulled in, we see where it's going, and we will have to mount more pressure as an opposition. We will have to mount pressure at the parliamentary level. We will have to mount pressure, have extra parliamentary activities to ensure that the public is well aware, and we bring public pressure to bear on this corrupt PPP regime.
Correct. We see MP Mike Paul is out, and if your guess is as good as mine, I'll tell you what it is. It is because of the blackout. No, it just goes to show, the things that we continue to speak about. He has blackout in his area there. He said he's trying to start his phone out to see if he could come back in just before we're finished. But this is another thing. The government, the corruption that we see that is as steep as it is, we have talked before on another program with you about even maybe the relations with the company that they would have gotten the ship from, and they told us, all our wars would be over. But this government is showing woeful incompetence because 2015 to 2019, any honest Guyanese would tell you there was a decrease in blackouts. There was better water in the country. That brown, dirty water was almost a thing of the past. People will tell you areas that had never had any water system in their communities received those. And it was done by a large group of engineers who were trained and who were hired within GWI to help to fix these issues. Likewise, at GPL, persons who were qualified were hired to deal with the issues, and we saw a dramatic decrease in these issues. And here it is like a magic wand. In 3 to 4 years, or I would say we started having this since about 2022, it has been reversed. And it is even seeming or proving to be worse than before, the water and the light.
Yeah, look, that's why at the beginning of this program, I said that corruption destroys the fabric of any country. And this, again, it can be alluded to in part, uh, by corruption and incompetence. Corruption in the sense of the companies that they engage. We know that they purchase a few generators under suspicious under a program that was not very transparent, and we have reason to suspect that they're underhand dealings there because it's secondhand generators. We're in an oil economy. We have monies to do it. They're going around sharing monies to friends and families, but not fixing these issues. You bring in, what was it, 17? I can't remember the number.
17
I think it was
generators.
17 second-hand generators.
Generator.
It's crazy. That's crazy, Shanieka. We solve these problems without the kind of funding, just proper management, employing competent people, having a transparent system where we have everybody around the table, the big table approach, and everybody air their views. We have competent people and we determine what we have to do, where we have to put the resources, and we get it done. But these guys are trying to do a little thing here, do a little thing there, with their friends and their family, and that is the result. We heard that the power ship would have saved us. That was the savior. And a few days later, you had all over from Barbados all the way to Georgetown, still in constant blackout. I don't know how the power ship will solve places like Region 2 and Bartica, who would have been experiencing occasional blackout already. But, you know, that is the way of the PPP. I had the Economic Services statutory meeting on Wednesday. And that's last Wednesday, 2 days ago. The Prime Minister was scheduled to come back to answer so many questions. Recall we had him for about an hour and a half, and we didn't get to cover the wide variety of questions that we had. Although he promised to stay through that program, he decided that he had to leave and he promised to come back. He's not going to come back. He's not going to come back. My chairmanship ended 2 days ago, and I believe that we might not have another meeting until election, until the new government is installed. And so that is how these guys operate. His excuse for not coming was that he's otherwise engaged in this disaster for what you call it, in the Caribbean, Hurricane Beryl. I don't know how much is his involvement. He's campaigning in the region too, so I don't see how he's involved to the extent that he cannot appear to answer serious questions with his team. If he can't come, he can simply send Mackay. Mackay is his junior minister. But these guys are not up for transparency and accountability. They don't want to account for what they're doing. So monies again are going on the hand, and you know they're doing an untold harm to this country. In terms of the monies that are being siphoned off, monies that can pay our teachers, for example, monies that could provide the kind of relief, the cost of living relief. We can do a lot with this money. We saw when we were the coalition, when the coalition government was in power. Just excuse me, I'm getting a little bit of allergy. So yeah, while we were in power, the nation saw what we could have done or what we did with the little bit of finance that we had. Our budget in 2015 was just $221 billion. This government for the last 6 months would have obtained from oil, just from oil, close to $300 billion. That is the equivalent of our 2019 budget. That is, and this is just 6 months from oil. In the next 6 months, that will more than double, because when you look at the forecast from Exxon and the price going up per barrel, they will get more than $300 billion. So they have the cash. They can't come around and tell people that they don't have money. Vice President Jagdeo came and to Ezekiel when I heard him saying that they don't have the money and all sorts of nonsense. They have the money. It's just what you do with it. It's going into the pockets of friends, families, and favorites of the People's Progressive Party. And therefore, we have to, the people of Guyana needs to understand this, see it for what it is, and register their disgust and dissatisfaction, if not now through their vote. I will encourage them to get on the road, to start campaigning, to start use their Facebook pages to expose this government at all levels. at all levels, begin to expose them and expose their corruption and their incompetence. And when we get to elections, let us kick them out. They're bad for Guyana.
Correct, correct. You know that we're out of time already. Like, the time just runs out. But I feel like we're gonna have to talk because maybe sometime early in the coming week, there are a lot of other issues that we need to address. We haven't talked about Guyana's own burial. When you said that just now, I wanted to make mention of that because what we're seeing happening throughout the region, even in terms of floods, etc., in the interior areas, the washing away of the roads, etc. These are things that are happening right here, and we're not seeing the level of effort that should be put into helping our people. Instead, we are seeing a government operating like Beryl, going to places like Sarah Jonah and all the different places that they all of a sudden feel like they need all the land in the world to collect, and just bulldozing persons place of abode with children. We saw families with about 6 and 7 children being left basically to the weather, to the elements as they would have gone through. And I think we need to have a special program to address just that issue, because what we are seeing now is a trend. And if we do not, as a people, begin to put a stop into it, we are really, really heading in a bad place in another 6 months at the rate that this government is going in terms of bulldozing people's home and tell us it's all about development while you are punishing, you are suffering our children, our women, our men, and telling us it's in the name of concrete and development, but you are literally pulling down the main resource of a country, the most valuable resource of a country. It's people. So definitely we'll talk about that and see how early in the following week we could have a program where I sit with you and maybe Miss Coretta and Miss Nima Flubes, who have been on the field, particularly in those areas, dealing with what is happening there, giving assistance, giving out hampers, etc., and whatever can be done to help those persons in the meantime. I want to give you an opportunity to just close up with us, wrap up today's program.
All right, thanks. And certainly I'd be more than happy to be on your program again to deal with that specific issue and maybe other issues at the same time. All I would say at this time is that, look, we the people of Guyana are seeing for themselves what has transpired over the last 4 years. We can see clearly the trajectory that we're on is not good for Guyana.
Mm-hmm.
People are suffering. We know people are suffering in this country. The vast majority are suffering. The vast majority are struggling to put food on the table in this oil-rich economy.
Mm-hmm.
While when we look at the other sides, we see a few friends, family, and favorites of the PPP government are doing pretty well. They are filling their pockets and they are enjoying that good life that you and I and all Guyanese, all 750,000 of us, are supposed to be enjoying. And so I want to urge us all not to make the same mistake that we made in 2020. Some of us did make that mistake in terms of voting for the People's Progressive Party. Let's bond together as a society and send a strong message to this government that a change must come to this country, and that change should be for the better. As a coalition, or I should say as a party, the People's National Congress, we form as the chairman of the largest political party in opposition. I give you my word that we will do better. We have been putting out our plans, our programs, maybe not all of it, but we've given you satisfactorily, and we continue to give you some of our programs and our policies when we get into government. I trust that you will follow us closely, you will compare our programs against those that are currently happening, and you will see that we intend to be a better government for the next 5 years and beyond that after the next regional and general elections. And so I want to urge us all to pay keen attention to what we're saying and to be prepared to give us your vote come 2025 so that we can truly experience that better life, equitable in every sense for all Guyanese.
Thank you. Thank you to my viewers for tuning in today. Join me next week, same time, same place. And I always want to remind my viewers that it is our responsibility as citizens to continue to hold the government accountable. And we do so in so many ways, whether it is sharing necessary information to be exposed, whether it is calling them out, and when the time comes, of course, whether it is a protest and whether it is time to vote, that you do what you must. I want to remind you that we continue to call for a clean voters list, and every Tuesday at 1 o'clock, we are in front of the GCOM office as we continue to call for a clean voters list and biometrics as we enter into the next regional and general elections. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope to see you soon.